comments I wanted to share with you guys.
I got some new clips with Brad Garlinghouse and David Schwartz. We're also going to take a look at some new information with Ripple and XRP. We got the news that Swift is going to do live tests with XRP and HBAR. We're going to cover a little bit of that too in this video.
So I thought they were competitors, but what are they like? Seems like they are working together, which is probably better for XRP's economy than ever before. Again, when a competitor wants to work with you, that's usually a very good sign.
Some new information for CME about XRP and a ton of other XRP content. Let's go ahead and start with this first clip here. CEO Brad Garlinghouse and CTO David Schwartz discuss XRP's future goals.
I was listening to your talk this morning, obviously, as we all were, and I'm curious to get both of your take on how mass adoption occurs. Obviously, I think one component is going to be making this stuff easier to use. I think the fact that Iggy Azalea followed me on Twitter this morning is a good sign for mass adoption. But what else is it going to take?
Well, user experience is super, super critical. You can't, if you have to understand the technology in order to get it to work, there was a time when you had to understand cars to drive a car. You had to understand copying machines to have a copying machine. We have to turn that corner. But I think the other thing is that we need products that meet needs that real people actually have. One of the things that I mentioned in my talk is, like, for most of us, we're very well connected to the financial system, and getting money into and out of a blockchain is not difficult for us. But if you're someone who, doesn't have a whole bunch of money that you can just, send off and not be able to get to for a while, on-ramps and off-ramps are critical, interoperability, like all of those things. But really what it comes down to is just the user experience has to be great and has to solve a problem people actually have. It can't just be interesting. It's like, oh, it's really cool that it can do this thing, right? It has to solve a problem people actually have.
Google and Apple.
So I think it's very important that people will start using it also when it gets easier to use. I feel like most people don't understand how to use Ripple right now. But with mainstream adoption coming, there could be a major influx of holders coming in.
Are actively working to upgrade their infrastructure to support stablecoins and cryptocurrencies. We're going to wake up one day, you're going to get an update on your phone, and you're automatically going to have a crypto wallet on your phone. It'll be associated probably either with your email or your phone number, which means if somebody like your friend or family wants...
If they're working with Swift, that's a pretty big key reason that we're seeing right now for Ripple. Is probably because they want to make the interference much, much easier, probably 10 times easier, and getting that initial user base where you can finally push XRP coin to the mainstream adoption. Right now, if you're holding XRP, you're probably top 1% overall, because nobody understands what XRP is yet.
To send you money anywhere in the world, they can do that with your phone number or your email associated with your phone number. I think that's going to be a very big turning point.
That's something Ripple can do.
People into the crypto space. Remember, you beat institutions here. You beat the rest of the world here. You will reap the benefits of all of this. Right?
One of the things David also talked about on stage earlier today is he had been around in the earliest days of the internet, kind of the internet 1.0. I'm a lot younger than him, but I also was around. Why is that funny?
I don't know. I don't know.
Frank, that's fine. Like, I was around those days as well. And I think one of the things that really catalyzed the growth of kind of the internet 1.0 was usability.
Yeah.
You know, Mosaic came out as a first browser that evolved into Netscape, that, trying to use some of these technologies that predated the browser as we know it. I mean, people can't even think about the internet before a browser. But, those things didn't exist until, I think, 92, 93. That was the explosive growth. And so I think, again, when I think about the big picture where we're going over the next 5 years, 10 years, I think we are now focused on abstraction layers that can actually, we don't need to know how the technology works. We don't need to know how SMTP works to send an email. Why do we need to know how to do things with core layer 1 technologies in order?
Ripple will probably use, just like you use your phone every single day to send these payment transfers. What they are trying to do now is make payment transfers much easier than actually having to go into a blockchain, make these transactions when you could lose a ton of money. They're trying to make everything 10 times easier, and that's what their main goal is right now. Once they get everything easy and simple, the mainstream adoption can come in and start using it.
To take advantage of them.
All right, got to make it easier, right? And here's another clip with David Schwartz talking about protection against cybercrime. This is a big deal. Ripple's starting to be more active in trying to prevent criminals from scamming people's crypto. Remember, whether you're on YouTube, on Discord, on X, on Telegram, if anybody is DMing you, it's probably some type of scammer. Assume everybody that is trying to reach out to you is trying to scam you, right? Until you can prove that this person is not hostile or this person is not pretending to be me or another influencer or somebody else that you might trust, just assume everybody is out to get you, right?
That's literally why the government is regulating more crypto, to prevent the stuff like this from happening.
Never answer emails, never give your seed phrase. These are all things to keep your crypto protected and safe. I care deeply about that.
And I know some people lost like 5 digits, 6 digits because of this. Crypto can't go mainstream yet, but Ripple is trying to bypass this and having like your phone number connected to your account. From what I heard, the rumors, that would be very huge for mainstream adoption to come in.
Let's always be cautious about what's going on around us, okay?
You know, I went through the sort of internet revolution, and that was very influential on me. And a lot of people may not know, particularly if they're younger, that there was a huge battle over the technology behind the internet around encryption. And, you know, criminals will use it to hide information so that, you know, law enforcement can't subpoena information to stop terrorist financing and spread of child pornography and radicalization of terrorists. And there was a big battle. I actually have an export license from the days when cryptography was considered munitions. And I had to get a license to export encryption software from the United States, from the Bureau of Export Administration, like they were, you know, rocket launched, you know, RPGs or something, or missiles. I mean, we won that battle. You know, we won that battle, and the internet has democratized the flow of information in ways, you know, it used to be if you wanted to say something, you had to get a newspaper or a book publishing company or broadcast television station to let you do it, because there was no way to reach the world otherwise. And we won that battle. And so it's just sad to me that the United States has not taken them.
So yeah, that's why the governments and corporation could use Ripple, because XRP is actually working on protecting their servers from attacks and everything like that, which just makes it much easier, which is a big problem in crypto right now. And that's what, you know, he's literally wearing XRP Ledger on the live TV.
More active role.
All right. And then remember, Brad Garlinghouse has been seen. He is okay. We don't have to call in any more groups to go find him. He is alive and well. He's probably just taking a break here after.
For anyone new and anyone who didn't understand, Swift is partnering with XRP, which is another big announcement. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love you all.
I mean, if you went through a 4.5 year legal battle with the most powerful United States government, I think you would want to take a little bit of time and just, you know, reflect and process all of that. This video I made today will come out on Thursday. If you're interested in getting more information about what is going on here, this is actually legitimate, real news. Swift is going to test XRP and HBAR in November, and this could play a vital role in what.
So again, this confirms my further thesis that October and November will be basically Uptober, and it follows the plan of where we could be getting that final push. And I feel like there is no coincidence why this released in November, is for the simple reason that that is when the markets pump as well. So this news will be pushing the XRP $4, $5 narrative, in my opinion. This is the big news that we have to watch out, except ETFs and everything else that we have on plan, like rate cuts.
Swift's going to do in the future. Remember, Chainlink is also working with Swift to connect those legacy systems to the new blockchain rails, but you're going to need some type of settlement token. Just hopefully Swift. Is there a chance Swift chooses HBAR over anything? Absolutely. There's that chance, but I think Swift won't want to pin themselves down on one technology. Remember, if you're going to be getting into the blockchain space, you never want to rely on just one technology. For settlement, you probably want several, right? Because if something happens to that one technology, your whole system is freaking gone, right? It's your whole system will not work. And so I don't see them backing themselves into a corner on just one technology, but that's my personal opinion. You can let me know what you think down below. Is XRP even going to be really considered here? I mean, they're going to do some testing, obviously, but is it really going to be considered? I'd love to better understand what you.
I wonder if Swift, which has a global dominance, is going to try to enter into crypto. Right now, we have, you know, XRP dominating the crypto space, but could Swift enter the crypto space, or is XRP entering the mainstream space? Because I feel like it's the other way around, right? That's why they want to partner up with them. XRP is now becoming known worldwide. And he made a joke, by a famous influencer following him. This is the first sign, guys, of retail investors coming back.
You guys think? High Vibe Assets posted this. Of course, it's documented. Utility is the ultimate end game for digital assets. Who will use them? The damn crypto. Not quite making sense on that one, but all good. Cross-border domestic corridors have been set up for a decade. Flip the damn switch. Institutional moon soon incoming. Moonshot incoming? I don't know. All good, all good. And then you have some of the XRP.
So a lot of people will want to buy the US dollar or hold it. If you don't guys believe me, from other countries where the currency can fall 400%, they made a pretty clear reason in RWA that people will want to hold the US dollar on the blockchain itself. So there's another reason why more people will flock into Ripple Layer USD or RLUSD stablecoin. That's the thing. They will be buying dollars and making these conversions and keeping it on the chain itself.
Liquidity corridors here. You have the US and Mexico corridor with Bitso. This is a very popular to get money in and out of Mexico into Mexico from the United States. You have coins US dollar to Philippine. Is it I don't know. Is it a Philippine dollar? Excuse me. I don't know that one. I do apologize. Let me know down in the comments. AU, US dollar, and AUD, Australian dollar. Of course.
So if you guys don't know, a lot of these are actually very known brands that are partnering up with XRP, which is a clear win. These are going to bring in millions of exchange volume every single month.
You have the Japanese yen here, and then you have AED, which I think is the dinar, India rupees. And then, of course, down here, JPP, PHP. You need to start learning all of these different cryptos. But the future of digital assets like XRP is determined not just by speculation, but real proven utility in financial markets. Ripple has spent years establishing and documenting working payment corridors for cross-border transactions, each supported by actual financial institutions and exchanges. Ripple's on-demand liquidity uses XRP and increasingly US dollar stablecoins like RLUSD to bridge assets. This provides instant.
That's why they're pushing their own XRP dollar, because it is going to be used by corporations for payments, salaries, whatever, you name it. That's the real deal of why XRP Ripple is out there on the chain. It's going to be used on the chain. I don't think it will, take over Tether or anything like that, but it's going to have its own use for the corporations that are going to be partnering with XRP.
Low cost international payments, solving real problems and banks at scale and paper providers issues. Who will use crypto? I mean, financial institutions, remittance providers, even central banks and potential early adopters will use.
So why will they use it? And also, we don't have to talk about small businesses will also use it for a very simple reason. It is to pay contracts. It is to pay things on the chain fast and efficient without taking like 5 days. It's going to take like 1 second, which is a huge win. And Ripple knows that. Ripple is going to make a ton of money from the fees, or possibly a ton of XRP is going to be burned from the transaction fees. Every time a transaction happens, some XRP is burned, which means the XRP is going to be deflationary and is going to potentially lower in supply.
We talked a little bit about the corridors already. It says cross-border corridors and infrastructure are needed for mass adoption. Ripple does cover 90% of the FX market. That is a $7.5 trillion a day market. It says the big picture here is decentralized payment rails with proven utility attract institutions because of their lower costs, increased speed, and provide transparency. Ripple's documented operational corridors demonstrates that crypto, XRP, and stablecoins are ready for enterprise-grade usage. If you look here at CME, remember CME is the biggest derivatives platform here in America. They hit an all-time high in open interest with 6,000 contracts in August 18th, right after the anniversary approaches. It's a clear sign of the growing conviction in the XRP market. If you're interested in learning all about,
this is just the start potentially, because this is before even the banks launched on their own chains or launched on their own banking systems. And each bank ordered something else from Ripple. Ripple is like a tool. They all sell something to the banks for a fee. And the banks can like decide 1 out of 10 things.
18th, right after the anniversary approaches. It's a clear sign of the growing conviction in the XRP market. If you're interested in learning all about, all the things that are being said about XRP and XRP's growth inside CME, it has been truly incredible. Just think now that the lawsuit is over with Ripple and people that are not actively engaged like you, maybe they own XRP, but they're not following all, the Ripple case and every bit of news. They they will look at the case being settled and they might jump in harder here. We want institutions, we want big money. And
I feel like the biggest push is not the case being settled because that's already priced in. The biggest push is the ETFs. Again, what do the ETFs do? They make purchasing XRP easier. And that's what a lot of people want to do for XRP. They want to purchase it, but they don't know how. Think about 2020, how hard it was to purchase XRP when it was not available on any exchanges. Now, with the XRP ETF, it's going to be possible with a single click of the button. Again, how many retail investors don't know how to use crypto or exchanges? I would say like 99% don't even know how to open an exchange account. This is what XRP is going to fix. Also with the banks, potentially the banks might enable you to buy XRP with a click of a button and, transferring the balances. This is why XRP will win. XRP, Bitcoin, Ethereum, all of these three are going to be super simple to buy. You can buy them on the go. You don't have to open an exchange, and that's going to be really, really easy for them to be the winners before any of these altcoins.
here's just some additional context here. When this debuted, CME XRP futures, it debuted in May 2025. And it had the third best day on record. So you have CME futures saw more than $19 million in notional volume, outperforming other launches like Solana only at 12.3 million. The highest one was Bitcoin at 102 million and Ethereum at 31 million. So Ripple taking the third place as they are the third largest cryptocurrency. This would concern me if Solana was a higher growth than XRP. Obviously, that means there would be more demand for Solana, but we are seeing it play out well, like we thought we would. It talks about rapid growth and high engagement. Within 2 months, combined XRP and micro XRP futures in CME have surpassed 1.6 billion in trading volume within a single day of 235 million traded on July 11th with more than...
Again, another win for XRP. XRP has a massive trading volume in Upbit Korea. This is the first thing. The second thing we have for XRP, it did outperform both combined Bitcoin and Ethereum this year. Just let it make sense. XRP is the clear winner once again in trading volume, which is a clear indicator of the price going up.
63,000 contracts were traded. Talks about robust global interest. Notably, 45% of trading volume has come from outside North America. So these are people that are actively looking to get XRP exposure from all around the world. That's pretty incredible. It does talk about during this time when I pulled up this information specifically, XRP open interest in CME reached about 766 contracts. I pulled this information at the beginning of August. So you can just see now we're at 6,000 contracts in just a few weeks. This went up 1,300 contracts. That's why I'm showing you this specific piece of information. Kind of crazy.
So again, it's not just the contracts that are blowing XRP up. It is also the partnerships we are seeing with the banks. CME Bitcoin futures debuted with 102 million trading on day one. That is in 2017. Ethereum saw 31 million and Solana saw 12.3 million. But XRP having 19 million, even more than Solana, just makes it insane. Of course, it's not going to be more than Bitcoin, but it is getting there. It does have other opportunity as the ETFs. Again, these contracts are just the start and they're very low in trading volume. 19 million in crypto. Well, XRP ETF is going to be like 1 to 2 billion. That's what my eyes are set upon.
1,300 contracts. That's why I'm showing you this specific piece of information. Kind of crazy to see all of this growth. And then Cassie Trades posted this. XRP golden retracement is holding. Target is $3.41 resisting. She's saying, I'm leaning bullish here. The structure is starting to look really interesting. XRP reaching its 618 retracement, $2.88, which lines up with the textbook subwave 2 target Elliott wave theory. This is a make or break retracement level that defines whether a new bullish trend is valid or just a fake out. Seeing XRP holding here is encouraging, especially with Bitcoin reaching its RSI support at the same time. With a retrace completes.
Honestly, with these price predictions, don't take them too serious, guys, because a lot of the stuff can change. So if the news goes good, the Clarity Act bill passes, that is all you need to know. October, November are the key dates for crypto. I don't predict September is going to be good. I personally think September, compared to other post-halving years, actually went down. So consider that XRP might go down. I'm hoping not, but be prepared for October and November. Tons of massive news, guys, that I will keep you updated on this channel.
Here, the 618, it sets the stage for a subwave 3, which is usually the strongest wave of this cycle. That's why this level
That's
is so
what's
important.
coming.
It holds the market.
This subwave 3, this is the phase 3, is where retail investors usually come back and buy supply of XRP. And again, if XRP did 600%, what does it make it go another 100%, right? So 100% XRP, which is at $7, isn't super unrealistic. $6. Again, there is an issue with $4. There's some support levels there, but I'm not too worried about that.
It remains bullish, and it opens the door for momentum to kick back in. Future mapping points towards the resistance at 341. The move should unfold in 5 subwaves through there, a couple of different scenarios. Those waves could develop along the way. Both end up landing at about $3.41. The critical marker for me remains at the 236 level at $3.21. Once it breaks, I'd expect it to backtest the support and conviction. After a backtest, a path forward to $3.41 starts to become more clear. And where can we go from there? Man, it's going to be really exciting to see. Ripple also has a bunch of trademarks. Chad Steingraber and Bank XRP did want to point this out. I did want to show you this. All of the different trademarks that Ripple has, different companies. And I was thinking, like, you know, I don't have a ton of trademarks on different things. So like I get that you want to make sure that your brand is protected in the future, but they own a lot, right? They own a lot of these.
The reason why they own these trademarks is to not have like a copy trying to take your market share.
And so
later on. But look, Payid, Ripple X.
I wanted to just better understand
what's going to be Ripple Impact, Ripple X. These are some that we haven't talked about on this channel.
What, you know, why
I think we can definitely see $6 by October.
Ones? There's a huge list here. So here's some of this information. I just want.
That would be awesome. $6 would be definitely the moves we need to see for XRP. But again, we got to breach $4 and $5 first.
I'm going to go through. This is the reason you'd have so many different trademarks is, of course, brand protection. Trademarks are legal tools that protect a company's brand names, logos, and product names, and sometimes slogans. For Ripple, trademarks terms like XRP and software related to crypto custody ensure exclusive rights, preventing others from misusing, copying, or diluting the brand assets in commerce. Market positioning. Having numerous trademarks helps Ripple control its branding and market identity as it expands into the new market products and services such as custody solutions and payments.
So yeah, I feel like XRP is going worldwide. It's not just one thing that they're going to do. They're not just going to work with banks. They're not going to give up there. They are trying to work worldwide. This is why the sky is the limit with this one. This is why I'm so bullish on XRP right now.
Infrastructure.
Because these trademarks that they're doing right now, they're protecting for their future ideas. Because I feel like after this partnership that they've been doing for the last 2 years, which is the banks working with the banks, we could be seeing, you know, more and more development from XRP, more announcements, even during the bad time of the markets. It's not just the good times that XRP will be working, it's also going to be the bad ones. When nothing is happening, Ripple and XRP will keep building.
Each trademark may target different aspects of the business like software, payments, and asset custody. It also talks about legal clarity and security. The filings create a documented claim to these names and concepts, which is useful in legal disputes, regulatory discussions, and the company grows internationally. Trademarks clarify Ripple's exclusivity over particular terminology and branding elements. Talks about product differentiation, excuse me, that's a strange word, and expansion. Multiple trademarks allow Ripple in the brand to distinguish a variety of products and service offerings. So interesting to see all of this news unfold, guys. What do you think about all of this? Love to hear from you.
Just being on the news, like Brad Garlinghouse and the chief technical officer of XRP being on there, it makes me think that this is one step closer for XRP to go mainstream. XRP just had a huge update, guys, as well. Huge XRP update.
Holding XRP, I have something very important to share with you. So the altcoin market is going absolutely crazy right now. What is taking place is whales are selling their Bitcoin and they're buying altcoins like XRP. Ethereum just broke all-time highs today, almost hit $5,000. Solana is going up. XRP is going up. Today, altcoins.
So yeah, a lot of people are selling their Bitcoin and they're even buying coins like XRP. Again, this is the new influx of whales. Even at $3 they're buying. When people are fearful, others are greedy. That's exactly what we're seeing right now. And for me, it's crazy that the whales are buying at $3, which is near all-time high for XRP, but they are not afraid because we are not in the same pattern as 2021. We're not the same pattern as 2017. It is a completely new era for XRP where the institutions could be coming in, and that is the big selling point for XRP. It's been preparing for institutions for the last like 4 years.
Pumped massively, but if you noticed, if you're taking a look, Bitcoin was dumping the entire day while altcoins were ripping massively. What was taking place is a manipulation, and these whales, they try to dump Bitcoin, they dumped a little bit, and they're trying to flush out people to get them to be shaken out of their altcoin positions like XRP and Ethereum and so forth. So this big whale, big seller, sold a whole bunch of Bitcoin at once to try to cause a crazy chain reaction. It caused a small flush on altcoins. They flushed, but they're bouncing, and it's looking very, very good. So what is going to be taking place here in the immediate short term? And remember, nothing in this video is financial advice. And the market is risk on because the Fed is signaling a pivot and that they're going to be cutting rates. When the Fed...
These rate cuts is in the nice market. What is really going to push XRP? Hello, everyone. And thank you for smashing that like button, Steven.
Signals that they are going to be cutting rates after having rates steady for quite some time or paused, or they've been raising rates. That creates a massive financial shift on every...
Raising rates, rising ETFs, interest rate cuts, all of these are bullish indicators. So basically, interest rate cuts is what's helping XRP, but what's really helping is the ETFs. Then we have some news, major SWIFT partnership with XRP in November. Again, it couldn't get any better than this.
Single aspect of the world financially. And what that does is it makes people, they essentially have more money to invest. It brings liquidity into investment markets, into certain assets like gold and crypto. But ultimately, it's going to be a massive liquidity injection into the stock market and the crypto market. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is a massive event that is taking place right now, and that's why altcoins are pumping up. The stock market is likely to pump up and continuing to make all-time highs, and it's going to get absolutely insane. If you guys take a look at the Bitcoin dominance chart, you could see Bitcoin dominance is nuking literally every single day. That means it's going down. This is the same exact thing that happened at the end of the last bull market in 2021. Bitcoin dominance started dumping very, very violently. And as a result, you could see altcoins are starting to go up. What is taking place right now is that people are selling their Bitcoin. Bitcoin's still going to go up in my opinion, but everyone is loading up on altcoins because historically every single 4 years after the Bitcoin halving event within the halving cycle every 4 years, that is the Bitcoin cycle. It is divided by every 4 years. At the end of that...
So guys, these gains we were seeing right now for XRP, again, very important to say, if you guys don't know, these gains for XRP, they were joining Bitcoin. There is a Bitcoin season, there's an Ethereum season, and then there's the altcoin season. And basically XRP falls into the altcoin season. Now, Bitcoin right now, what we are seeing is has been dominating the last 1 year. But the next year is where really, or next year and this like later Q4 is when the altcoins come back. So XRP is literally going to join the line for another rally. It cannot get any better than that. That means that XRP will potentially have 2 rallies and not just 1 this year. So this is 10 times better.
Bull run, there is a bull run. Once you have the halving, you have a bull market approximately that lasts from the bear market bottom to the bull market top 3 years every single time. Then you have a bear market that lasts for 1 year. Based on the 4-year cycle, we are in the last couple of months in the bull market, and this is where the biggest gains for altcoins are always made in every single 4-year cycle. Right now, we are literally in the final stages of the bull market, the last couple of months left, which according to the 4-year cycle, we should top out in sometime in October, so towards the end of October. Now, because cryptos do this every single 4 years, people mathematically, They understand that Bitcoin does this every single 4 years. This is literally the time to buy. So you're going to start to see altcoins go absolutely crazy. There's lots of traders, banks, really smart people.
So historically, this means that XRP will now outperform this quarter Bitcoin if everything goes to plan. Which again, it just seems like a double win. Yes, other altcoins might go up, but if XRP goes up and goes more than Bitcoin, this means it's still going to be the best investment probably for anyone that invested early this year or that bought XRP early this year.
Trade cryptos according to these 4-year cycles.
And I've been calling utility coins are going to be the biggest purchase of this year. Personally, that's my opinion, right? Because look at the US government. It's been literally saying, Eric Trump has been saying live on air that they're going to be focusing on US-based coins. And look at what happened to US-based coins. They went 400% up.
Honestly, the majority of the money in crypto is trading according to the 4-year cycle, and they know that this is the final stage of the bull market, and they know they need to load up on altcoins, especially the strong ones that have utility like XRP and other coins, before they miss this next massive pump. And make sure you guys join my private community.
So yeah, you guys get the point. This is the generational wealth we have been waiting for, is when retail investors finally started downloading the apps back and buying back in. But we got to talk about XRP, Brad, Cardano. Now, if you don't know what Cardano is, it's another project that is like XRP, but had a great conversation with Brad, which is the CEO of XRP, about XRP, or he's the CEO of Ripple, which manages XRP. And this is literally the CEO of Cardano. Again, another US-based backed project. Look at the US flag back in the background. They are making a special collaboration, guys, that we never seen before. That is completely insane what's happening in the crypto space in the last week. We've been seeing more news this week than any other week this year.
I really like this. Had a great conversation with Brad Garlinghouse, XRP. Look, ISO 222 projects should be collaborating more and more partnerships. And I don't know if you know, but if you're holding Cardano, you're getting midnight, right? On your Roy wallet, which is really good. I did it and I see my midnight. Now, what is that? That's free crypto. Good one. There's a lot of potential. But how about XRP? How about other Ethereum? And so, I mean, he said it that you're also getting midnight. So, Cardano ecosystem is doing a bunch of things. And you might wonder, well, what's the deal with XRP? After so many times where people ask Charles, one of the legends that I actually respect a lot, it's like, what's going on with Ripple? What's going on with Brad? Listen to this. I have a few more things that I want to show you because it's just good, guys. The crypto industry is coming together.
And it was a great round table. Sergey Nazarov was there, Anatoly from Solana. We got Ilya from Near and Brad from XRP. Some nice people, man. And it was good to see some old friends, some new friends, and make some deals here and there.
So this is a partnership in the making because they both have the same plan. I'm pretty sure Cardano had different partnerships, not with the banks. Didn't they partner up with PayPal? So that's the thing. They're not eating each other's market share. They're having their own partnerships, but they're building the same technology. And here's where things get interesting. Two basically billionaires meeting up and talking about XRP and their own projects. I feel like there's a massive collaboration they will do at some point, if they're not already doing it and exchanging ideas, that will push both tokens up in price.
Everything's coming along. Midnight's coming along really well. Cardano's coming along really well. We're pushing forward. You know, redemptions are looking strong, over 70,000, give or take, about 1.6 billion worth of tokens so far redeemed. And we just keep pushing forward. 60 days plus the scavenger hunt plus remorseful redemption pool. It's a really nice layered way of distributing a token and getting a lot of other ecosystems involved. In fact, I had a great conversation with Brad about XRP, and it'd be a lot of fun to do something there. So Lace is going to support XRP before the end of the year. I'd love to do a joint event with some of the people on that side of the aisle and see if we can get John Deaton there, a few others. But overall, kind of pushing forward. And it's a broad ecosystem, 8 ecosystems, 7 blockchains, Bitcoin and Ethereum and Solana and XRP and Avalanche and BNB. Go down the list. It's a lot of.
So a lot of these US utility coins will have the most potential out here, especially if the US government decides to come in. And guys, smash that like button if you haven't already. The reason why I have this on is because I am a bit sick and it makes me talk easier, also breathe easier. So it kind of makes sense even if it looks a bit silly, so I can make videos for you guys.
Good people. And it's going to be one of the largest, if not the largest, airdrops of all time. So I had lunch today with JJ and I said, we needed a dedicated NEAR team, a dedicated XRP team. We need a dedicated team for Brave of people that are account managers that do nothing but talk about the long arc commercial.
My personal feeling is that XRP will underperform in September. Like everything collapsed when Ethereum hit all-time high. I feel like September is going to be terrible for crypto. But the thing I'm focused on is just like pushing through September, going to October and November. These are my predictions, This is the most important factor. Thanks, man. So this is the most awesome thing we have right now. Is literally all of the good stuff, all of the good news is aligning now.
Guys, this was a surprise AMA a few days ago.
All good.
And obviously the XRP army is getting these clips and I've heard of it, but I'm like, you know what? Let's have a...
Like what's happening behind the scenes here with Brad and literally the I feel like he's a billionaire, at least in his own tokens. They are probably making some pretty big partnerships here. And look at that. Brad Garlinghouse immediately posted after, thanks for the kind words, Charles, which, is the CEO of Cardano. Now it's time for crypto community to come together, push for a playing field and clear rules of the road. So guys, if you didn't know, like 10 years ago, they were having a fight. A lot of these altcoins were fighting which one is going to win out in the end, but all of them are going for the same goal. And I feel like they're going to even exchange some ideas, some partnerships, which will in the end pump both of them. Perhaps if one gets a partnership with US, which is where the big income is at. Again, I feel like US is taking still very carefully for crypto. They just announced last week that they're not going to be buying any XRP for themselves because it's going to use taxpayers' money. There is another potential more than banks. Like Ripple is right now working with the banks. There is way, way, way more income for Ripple available than just banks. They're finally profitable after 9 years. So the company is now profitable. They had to sell so many tokens for the lawsuit. It cost them a lot of money. But here is where the real partnerships begin that will potentially take maybe 1 to 2 years to form.
I just spoke with Brad. He's a great CEO and he wants to collaborate. I'm excited to see how the future holds. Brad replied, thanks for the kind word, Charles. Now it's the time for the crypto community to come together. And that's what I said at the very beginning. Now we got to this one. Remember how Charles...
Delisted suit excluded. That is why XRP's price was only at 20 cents because it was impossible to buy. You could only buy it from only from one exchange. They're back stronger than ever. And now a lot of the banks want to work with them because they had to fully disclose everything, during the lawsuit. And after they won, a lot of the banks came back and said, hey, we want to work with Ripple. Cardano knows this fight. XRP proving hard work and resilience win. And this is the coins that have been underperforming in 2021 are now finally starting to get back and overperforming or performing 10 times better than 2025. Because 2021 levels, when people look at 2021 charts, it was not the year of regulation. It was the year of retail. It was the year of risk and meme coins. But 2025 is all about regulation setting in and regulation coming, and all of these coins that are going to be working in technology are potentially going to win if they survive these 4, 5, or 10 years or a $500 million lawsuit.
Mentions XRP just during, the Gary Gensler regime.
Every single time you get hit hard and you have to come back. The XRP community is a great example of that. No one got hit harder than them. It was tough. And I understand their anger. I really do. I spent a lot of time in their spaces. I spent a lot of time talking to their community members. Dave Schwartz is a great guy. He's a brilliant guy. It's a lot of fun being in meetings with him, and I love to hang out with him. He's super smart, and he's just really passionate. After all this time, he still has it. But remember, every step of the way, They were excluded, delisted, sued, and even when they won, they still had to fight. Yet they're still around. They're still here. They're still resilient. And they got a bright future because of it. And Cardano in many ways has similar respects, as does Bitcoin. Every single.
Boom. Now, Johnny Deaton replies, "It will be an honor and a pleasure to present working together with Charles Hoskinson and other leaders in the..."
That's what I'm saying, guys. It's not just one coin that will pump. Even if one of these coins pump, there's a very high likely chance. So example, look at what happened with Bitcoin. When Bitcoin goes up, all other coins follow. Now, I feel like the same pattern is going to be happening with utility tokens. When utility tokens go up, they're going to be all followed as an ecosystem going up. So it's going to be a niche. Like XRP going up also means Cardano goes up, and vice versa. Cardano going up means XRP will go up. Same thing we saw with Bitcoin and other altcoins following up.
Crypto ecosystem. So I like it, man. This is really good for everyone holding crypto, because I got some news that you're probably not going to like. Yeah, boom. 75% chance of a rate cut. It was a 90%, 80% after what the Fed said that they want to.
I feel like looking at the rate cut price predictions or the cut predictions, 3 weeks or 1 month before they happen is useless, because we all knew what was going to happen. At the start, it was like 30%, and then it went down to 5%. This is going to be very extreme. Like, this is maybe 20 different predictions. We're going to be seeing no change. But personally, I feel like there's a very, very strong chance they happen, at least like a 25 basis points. Now, the more basis point cuts we have, the prices will go higher.
Change course in their strategy, right? The agenda. So people are like, oh, so what's going to happen? Because as I'm going on CoinDesk and other different, magazines on X, people now are freaking out about this. And they're, of course, trying to get eyeballs. And people say, oh, what's going on, right? Even fudders, this week, even fudders like this well-fud.
ADA and XRP are ready to outperform ETH. That's what I've been saying. But yeah, whale FUD, we will see. Like, XRP right now has already vastly outperformed ETH this year. Now, if the government announces, to actually go in on utility tokens, especially US coins, the US coins are going to have a clear advantage here.
It says Cardano and XRP are ready to pass Ethereum. So the question is, do we want to see this collab more and more and more? I'll say yes. Yes, absolutely, guys. So we still haven't heard the conversation between them and Donald J. Trump. I'm sure behind closed doors they talked, of course. We want to see something public, and I know it's coming, but man, these are the brains, right, of great organizations, and I so like it, fam. Also, we have $50 million hits Coinbase as Ripple case finally closed. So you can tell right here that.
So XRP worth 50 million were transferred from an unknown wallet to Coinbase. Now, usually this means that a whale will sell. Like, when it goes on the Coinbase, 50 million might get sold. But again, the supply of people buying is much bigger anyway.
16 million XRP transferred from unknown wallet to Coinbase. According to.
So yeah, worth from 108 million were transferred from unknown wallet to unknown wallet. When it goes to Coinbase, usually it means, yeah, this is not a bullish indicator, because what do you do when you send something to an exchange, right? You sell it. But again, just seeing that XRP can hold 50 million, like 50 million sell in one day, just tells me how much demand there is for this.
Whale alert. So there's whales moving money, guys. As always, guys. So if you want to come into the whales or buy a little bit.
So yeah, pretty clear idea that the whales are selling, and it, corrects my price prediction. I'm usually right on this because I have been tracking it. Again, this shows what I've been explaining. At $3.66, the rally we saw 3 weeks ago, a lot of whales have decided to sell. And once this sell pressure dies down and eases a bit, I am expecting a huge rally because, again, ETFs, this is a huge inflow indicator. Look at what happened with Bitcoin and Ethereum once it got that rally.
The world.
But, yeah, what price could we see? Let me know down in the comments below, guys, because I personally feel like we could push past $4, 4.5, maybe even $5, you know, for this run alone. Could be much more, but nobody knows for sure. This is where it really becomes exciting. But it definitely seems to me if whales are buying at $3 that it has that upward potential. So let's check. $80 XRP estimated short-term, banks investing trillions soon. I feel like we just got a new partnership, right?
Is starting to wake up and understanding that crypto and blockchain rails are here to stay. It is the evolution of the entire financial system. This is something that if you've been in the Ripple and XRP space for the last few years, you have known for quite some time. And it's only now that institutions are coming forward and admitting as much. Today, we're going to look at
about 0.006% of institutions own any crypto at all. That means a lot of institutions could be buying XRP once the Clarity Act comes out in September.
Some of those commitments here saying that 6 to 7 billion people will get a crypto wallet overnight through Android and Apple. That will push crypto's evolution on the global scale to the maximum degree. First, I want to play this older clip.
This is the thing people have been predicting for 4 years to happen, and now we are finally at the breaking point. So the emerging financial architecture, notice how commercial banks are positioned behind central banks relative to XRP Ledger, XRP, and then you can see here all of these banks are lining up the smaller ones with the big banks.
Here, this is Apex Crypto Consulting talking about this image that we've all seen here in the XRP space. He gave a good analysis. I also want to...
A lot of these banks like bought maybe something from Ripple or are in one way working from Ripple. Maybe they didn't buy fully into the XRP Ledger, but XRP Ledger has so many utilities. It's like a Swiss knife of sorts. It has multiple uses, and this is where XRP wins, right? Second person, I've heard say billions will have a crypto wallet on their first phone overnight. I'm not sure if billions, but what I do know is probably millions of people coming in and talking about XRP. Again, XRP and Ripple are trying to make it so retail investors will buy Ripple very easily.
Show you that clip. I played this on another video, and this clip absolutely blew my mind. You have to hear what's in it. I also have some other Ripple and XRP content that we're going to go over, some new information from CME Group. Got to show you. Let's first start here with this clip, and let's get it.
They're all next to the XRP ledger, and you see how the commercial banks here are behind the central bank. So here's the commercial banks. They're behind the central bank. You have commercial banks, central banks, and then you have the XRP ledger. That's the M bridge right here. Let's look at that again. Exact same design here. You've got the central banks that are closer to the XRP ledger, and then commercial banks are behind. Central banks right next to the XRP ledger, and then commercial banks are behind.
So yeah, it's pretty obvious that a lot of these smaller banks will just follow what the big banks are doing right now, partnering with XRP. So the banks are all connected. And again, you have bigger banks, you have smaller banks, and the bigger banks obviously are partnering with XRP because they might just use their system the same as the big one, which is another, few $10,000s of dollars of XRP being burned each single month, which increases the use case for XRP overnight.
Central banks. Central banks are between the XRP ledger and the commercial banks.
All right, so if you're interested in watching this person's full video, I'll just show you here their channel here. It's on, here's the X channel. It's got 3,500 followers. And I'll even show you here their YouTube channel if you're interested in taking a look. I'm not going to play this video here, but he's got about 14,000 subscribers. Worth checking out if you like XRP content. The person does some pretty good information. All right, I did want to play this because this clip freaking blew my mind. Absolutely insane. You have to hear this.
Wall Street's excited.
So basically, Ripple is trying to sell all of these banks like a service, trying to connect everything. It's trying to enter the system that is really outdated from before. The old system takes like 1 or 2 days to send a transaction, takes over $3. Now, in the developing country, this is a lot of money. So we are seeing this, like literally millionaires talking about XRP overnight in these. There was a lot of events this month, which also boosted XRP.
They're going to tokenize a bunch of stuff. They're going to put it on blockchains. That's great. But I think Silicon Valley is going to be the distribution. In the next couple of years, Apple and Google are going to enable stable coins in a crypto wallet natively in iOS and Android. So kind of sort of overnight, 8 billion people are going to get a crypto wallet in their phone. They don't even have to ask for it. It's just going to be there.
6 to 7 billion people are going to get a wallet overnight. What's what's going to happen is you're probably going to be able to send money, crypto, stablecoins, XRP.
So I don't know if it's going to be 67 billion. I feel like it's going to be a way lower amount, maybe like 30, 50 million. But if this happens, if we even get 1 billion people downloading the app, it would be one of the most used apps in the world. Now, to get that, it's going to be very hard, right? This is what every single corporation wants. But they want to simplify everything, because right now, if you're using crypto, you're probably in the top 1% of smart people, because crypto is not easy to use. It's actually very hard to use for, a retail investor, someone who just heard about crypto. It's not like the stock market. This is where, millions and billions of people could be flocking in with a click of a button. They could be now owning XRP.
Android or an Apple phone, right? The phone number associated with the phone.
That's what Ripple was teasing, like a phone number having, and buying XRP that will be tied to your phone. You forgot your password. No problem. You're just going to get a new number on the phone itself.
Or the email associated with the phone as well. That's what you're going to be able to use as the wallet address to send this. What do you think happens when everybody wakes up with a crypto wallet on their phone? Then you think of like central banks, right? If they want to entice people to get onto this new ecosystem, right? These new digital rails, they can say, hey, here's $500 to sign up. We can send it right to your Money mobile wallet. Just have to fill this out, fill this out, fill this out. I know there's a lot of people saying, Sensei, I would never do that. If they offered you 2,000 or 3,000 or 5,000, at what point would you say yes? Because there will.
Didn't one of the countries try that with Bitcoin, and they gave each resident of the country like $10 to download the app? I feel like same thing with XRP. Like claim your first 0.0 XRP if you download the app. This is a very common tactic that might be used. And that's how mainstream adoption for XRP will happen before Bitcoin.
Be a point for most people, and that point might not even be thousands of dollars. Think of about $500 or $1,000 could do with your family, right? Most people can't afford a $1,000 medical bill that comes up out of nowhere. People are working paycheck to paycheck, right? They are struggling just to get by. And if governments step in and say, here's some free money, people are going to take it.
There's going to be APIs in the operating systems for every single application. Telegram, WhatsApp, Facebook, you name it, is going to be able to tap into that API.
Is it happening more quickly than you thought, slower than you thought, or as you thought?
I mean, look, if you asked Kyle of 8 years ago, would crypto be like mature 8 years later, I would have said yes. And I would argue crypto is not really mature today, so slower than I would have thought. But I think a huge part of that has just been regulatory, which could never forecast. Genius happening has changed a lot of things. Even 30 days ago, it was like illegal for anyone in Silicon Valley, like any of the big tech companies, to actually do anything productive with crypto.
That's what I'm telling you guys. This is why the corporations did not own any XRP. For this simple reason, they could not buy it, and I keep telling people that.
That is no longer the case as of roughly 30 days ago. And I think once those guys flip the switch, that's when this goes truly.
All right. Here is a clip from Ripple Van Winkle. He was retweeting this. It says, JP Morgan and Ondo Finance are partnering to revolutionize finance. This is why, baby, you should be looking at Ondo. We've talked about this in almost every single live stream I've had for the last 2 years. We've been talking about Ondo, maybe a year and a half. It's been a long time.
Yes, I'm really thrilled to see how JP Morgan and Ondo have been able to work together so well. JP Morgan is the most reliable, largest bank in the US for a lot of good reasons. Ondo is a great tokenization platform that's made really high quality on-chain tokenized product, which is why I think JP Morgan chose to work with them. Nellie's point, this is a very collaborative and mutually beneficial relationship where on the JP Morgan side and the capital markets on the Ondo side, they both benefit from this.
And guess what? This Ondo partnership with JP Morgan, which is one of the biggest banks, they both benefit, but guess what they use for the payment platform? They use XRP Ripple. From all the payments they could use, they use XRP Ledger. Just let that sink in. Again, this is like Ondo is like a Ripple competitor, but not really, is doing different things. It's trying to have different type of partnerships, not with banks, but more on real world asset and RWA. Here is where it blows my mind. They decided to use XRP Ripple. Literally, BlackRock is going to be paying them out on the ledger itself, from what I heard.
Integration and the ability for transactions to happen between these two groups, they both grow in the utility they provide to their client base. They both grow in what they're able to offer their users. The technical challenges of, how do you connect these two systems? How do you make sure that, value and data flows between them? How do they get synchronized in order to enable these two groups to interact with each other in these valuable ways? that has to meet a certain level of reliability and guarantees that Nelly and JP Morgan needs to see. And it needs to have the features and advanced capabilities that Ian and Ando need for their system to take full advantage of this kind of transaction.
Remember, most big banks, like the 10 largest banks, 15 largest banks in the world, they have understood that this was coming for quite some time. They have prepared, and they have all of this infrastructure already built out. But I
feel like a lot of these banks are waiting for regulation before they fully launch on the XRP ledger, which, if you don't know, XRP ledger is still in testing stages in very early versions. That is because the banks are not committed to 100% use it. And my personal opinion is because the Clarity Act bill hasn't passed, which will probably happen through the Senate in about September. You know, the US government is forcing themselves to push and regulate crypto before anyone else.
Thousands and thousands and thousands.
Because if they regulate it first, that's where all the countries will move to. Like, they know that moving to US and starting a crypto company there, that is going to be basically, they want to be the future powerhouse.
Thousands of other banks, sat on their hands, and they really maybe didn't even have the foresight to pre-plan until maybe regulation was happening. All of these things were happening. Those banks need infrastructure, and they need it quickly. And the best way to get that infrastructure is to go to Chainlink, to go to HBAR, to go to Ripple, to go to Circle, and borrow and use their infrastructure to connect to these new digital rails. This is going to be a boom cycle for the crypto space like we've never seen before. This is how the industry goes from 4 trillion to 100 trillion over the next 8 to 10 years. And I want to be a part of that, right? I think that I'm in the right place at the right time, understanding the right information. And
I also feel that is because also XRP is not only going to be working with banks. That's a misconception. There's a ton of other partnerships they have in plan. Just look at their patents. There's a ton of patents they actually filed in 2013 that have never been realized because they've been focusing on being profitable right now. In 2023, 2024 is the first year they were profitable as a company. Now they can develop all these projects that the governments are looking for, that banks are looking for, that small businesses are looking for, and the retail is looking for. Perhaps we are going to be seeing a lot more announcements coming next year. Now that the lawsuit is over, they have a lot more free time on their hands, which is where the big money could be coming in for XRP.
I hope my future is bright, filled with all kinds of good things. It's already been filled with so many good things, right? 100,000 subscribers. Couldn't have done that without all your support and your love and your time and your energy. And that means the world to me. And I'm going to keep showing up every day to give you the latest news and information because I owe you that much. I really appreciate you. All right. High Vibe Assets. It says Ripple, Santander, PNC, Bank of America. Holy smokes. Inflows and outflows with institutional partners. XRPL is insane. And he says RLUSD to settle domestic transactions in seconds, less than a penny. Get your popcorn ready. Ooh.
This is just a new partnership, guys. I forgot to mention Shinhan Bank just partnered with XRP as well, which is, just another smaller fish that is going to be joining the bigger fish. Everyone is building on the XRP ledger. Again, they're not fully 100% committed. Some of them are only using a tool for XRP ledger, for example, fast payment transactions. So that's the only thing they hired. But it is a positive uptrend. A lot of these, banks might be using something in the future as well, like adding some of these tools from XRP ledger more. And that's where really the more they order, the more they have to pay Ripple, but the more money they save.
I love some popcorn. Oh my God, this week.
So for example, Bank of America, I'm pretty sure they only want like the fast transfers. They don't want to actually burn XRP, but they are making so many tools of itself, so many crafts, which really makes a big difference. Look, they're a $1.1 trillion company.
My wife and I are going to go see K-pop Demon Hunters in the theaters. It's like a sing-along. I mean, I'm not super excited about the sing-along part, but I am excited to watch that movie in the theaters. Oh, it's one of my favorite movies in 2025 so far. I know what you're thinking. Go watch the movie and then criticize me. All right, let me just show you this. I plugged this information into Perplexity. I pulled this some additional information. Here is that information. If Ripple and XRP were to capture even a fraction of institutional flows mentioned in this image, covering banks like Santander, SBI Holdings, Bank of America, PNC, and Standard Chartered, Shinhan Bank, Woori, and American Express, XRP's price could dramatically could see a dramatic upward pressure. Here's what the current analysis and
this is what I've been saying, guys. But for institutional adoption, you need to be allowed to purchase. Like, look at 2020. Ripple was 20 cents, but you cannot buy it on any exchanges. So when banks and large institutions use Ripple's technology for payments and settlements, the demand for XRP as a bridge asset rises, creating sustained utility-based buy pressure, not just hype-driven speculation. Price models estimated that if XRP became the go-to international settlement across major banks, its price could leap anywhere from $8 to over $80 per token. Now, if we want to see $80 per token, guys, we're going to need to see a token burn. But it is not impossible, right? This is the big factor that we're seeing. Like $8, we're already at $3, and we just needed 1 year to go from 50 cents to $3. And with more money coming in, $8 is not that impossible.
Model suggests institutional adoption is one of the strongest real demand drivers for XRP. When banks and large institutions use Ripple's technology for payments and settlements, the demand...
What institutions are waiting for is literally regulation, which is coming later this year and probably in the next 1 to 2 years. So it's not going to be overnight, as some YouTubers are saying, or some people are saying, XRP is going to hit $80 overnight. It really is going to take time because of this regulation that I'm trying to explain to you guys.
And for XRP as a bridge asset rises, creating sustained utility based on buy pressure, not just hype-driven speculation. Price models estimate that XRP became the go-to international settlements across border major banks. The price could leap anywhere from $8 to $80 per token, depending on the percentage of global payments. Now, I want to take a look at this. If in fact XRP was announced to be the deciding factor for all of these institutions to use for cross-border payments or domestic payments or whatever it is, the demand, the FOMO level for XRP would far exceed this price, right? You got to understand that the ETF approvals, that is going to do a huge wonder for XRP's price. It could even send XRP into the 3 digits if we get hundreds of billions of dollars to come into XRP from fresh inflows over a few year period. Add this to the mix and other stuff that Ripple and XRP, XRP community.
ETFs will bring 1 to 2 billion in the first month, according to predictions. $1 to $2 billion of XRP being bought. Now, some of that will be outflows, but the most important factor is so much easier to get your own XRP. Some people might only buy 10 XRP. Some people might buy 1 XRP. But again, that is going to be a new holder that is going to know about XRP and going to start holding it for future years.
And dev team are building, borrowing, lending, tokenization of financial assets, right? Ripple becoming a bank right now. There's so many things that you can look back and say, hey, you know what? I was right, right? We didn't get everything. We weren't right about everything.
Ripple being a bank is literally the first step for their ledger to work. If they were a security, if they lost the lawsuit, we would never get to this point because it would be very hard to get their banking license, which means their XRP ledger would be very hard to work. But now they're pushing for worldwide adoption.
Everything. But we had the understanding of where this was going, and we believed in Ripple, the company. We believed in XRP as an ecosystem, as a blockchain infrastructure, and now we are here. A lot of what we thought is coming true, and I cannot wait to see where this all takes us. It does say if 1,000 top global banks held $500 million worth of XRP each for liquidity needs, XRP could reach $8. So I don't know where it's pulling this information from, but listen, if 1,000 institutions woke up tomorrow and started buying XRP, it would be all over but the shouting. The only place you would need to figure out at that thing, right? The only thing you would need to decide on that day is where are you going to retire, right? Do you want to stay where you are, or do you want to go to Hawaii or Japan, right? Or London? I don't know. Italy, Greece. Where would you want to retire? I'd love to better understand that. Chad Steingraber, of course, says CME. Like, Chad's a good guy. I don't agree with Chad on a lot of stuff, but me and him put our differences aside. He posts a lot of good information. I'm going to give him a shout out. A CME now is the 4th place and largest XRP open interest, nearing 1 billion. XRP futures are growing, signaling stronger market demand.
And again, where is there a very big interest coming from? It's a very big interest coming from Korea, where they're buying XRP on a massive level. And I feel like not only USA, other countries are joining in. If we look at the data, tons of traders are buying and selling XRP. It's being used worldwide. It's not just a USA thing.
And for upcoming spot XRP ETFs, and here is that demand. CME, open interest, and look at all these: Bitget, Binance, Bybit, CME is 938 million and rising. It is getting kind of crazy here. I've been watching these contracts grow month over month, and it is getting very exciting. CME's XRP futures open interest is hitting all-time highs, now ranking 4th globally among exchanges for nearly $1 billion. As of August 21st, 2025, CME reported surpassing 6,000 contracts. This is without crypto regulation, right? Clarity Act. Now, they said Clarity Act was coming in September. Now it sounds like they're trying to get it done before the end of the year. Regardless, whether it's September or whether it's November, this is going to be extremely bullish.
I feel like that the government is basically rushed to get it done. They've been asking for it. They said if we don't get it done, another country will, and they will be first. They're pushing to get it done before anyone else.
For the crypto space. And I would imagine this will double, triple, maybe even quadruple or higher over the next few years. I think it's just going to get insanely silly. This surge marks CME as the leading US regulated venue for XRP derivatives, signaling a power.
Also, ETFs really increase volume. Just one more thing, guys. ETFs, they really increase the volume, which increases the price. High volume trading has been proven to increase the prices of XRP.
Powerful influx of institutional participation and demand for regulated XRP exposure. I think it was like 45% of the value going into CME, right? This is one of the largest derivatives platforms in America. A lot of this money is coming from overseas, right? There are overseas people in Australia, London, all of these different places, Japan, Korea, that are interested in these types of derivatives for XRP, and they are investing. Notably, institutional traders are driving much of CME's volume, fueled by recent regulatory wins and rising speculation for ETF approvals. Also, Lark Davis wanted to point out that we are not even at the close to the market being at the top. He says that none of the 30 bull market peak indicators are flashing right now, yet some people are convinced that Bitcoin and the entire crypto market has topped for the cycle. And so he's pointing out that some of these indicators include the Bitcoin AHR 999 index, high cycle top indicator, Pule multiple, Bitcoin rainbow chart, days of ETF net outflows, and he's kind of showing kind of what it needs to be, ETF and Bitcoin ratio, 2-year MA multiplier, MV.
It's very obvious XRP is not at the top. Even like the indicators are showing that, which they are, based on historical patterns. The thing is, historical patterns, we didn't have a bullish government. We didn't have ETFs coming in. We didn't have rate cuts coming in. We just had a small spike that lasted for a few weeks. This is where really it could change everything.
RV, Z-score, Bitcoin bubble index, USDT flexible savings, RSI 22-day, altcoin season index. It should be at 75. This is at 51. Bitcoin dominance, right? 58% up, 68, 65. Bitcoin long-term holder supply, Bitcoin short-term, Bitcoin reserve risk, Bitcoin net neutralized profit. I mean, this is pretty much all the Bitcoin signals here. Surprised to see Coinbase on here, right? Coinbase reaching the #1 app, but here are all the things that he is looking at, and it doesn't look like we're even close. August and September are usually strange kind of months, choppy months. I'd imagine that October, November, December should be extremely impactful for all of our.
So again, the indicators don't lie. If you hold XRP, don't mess this up. This is your last chance. I wanted to ask, what's going on with XRP? Look at how good it's getting. But a lot of, traders are making this mistake with XRP right now.
You guys need to listen very closely right now, because the Fed is about to unleash an XRP bombshell. And
It's what I've been telling you. Fed is coming in and it's getting more bullish on the markets. While we were still waiting for the big patterns, here's Fed coming in. In 1 month, the Fed will cut rates and blame a weaker labor market. So they were worried about the last report, not having too many jobs. Again, Fed cutting rates is a good price indicator. We now have PPI inflation growth at a 3-year high and CPI inflation for above 2% for 53 straight months. You will be left behind here. In the near term, risk to inflation are tilted to the upside and risk to employment to the downside. So that's what their report is. Baseline outlook and the shifting balance of risk may warrant adjusting our policy stance. So this is kind of a hint that they might, just as well cut rates, which is going to push altcoins higher and Bitcoin dominance lower.
Rates. Now, what I haven't done is a deep dive analysis on what this means. And I wanted to first feature something from the Kaposi letter here going over this, because frankly speaking, it is shocking. They say that Fed Chair Powell has caved. In 1 month, the Fed will cut rates and blame a weaker labor market. Meanwhile, we now have PPI inflation growth at a 3-year high and CPI inflation above 2% for 53 straight months.
That
Don't
isn't
own
that bad.
assets, you will be left behind. Here's why. Now, we're going to tear through this thread here. We're going to cover exactly what it means, what I think it's going to mean for XRP in just a second. But first, I do have a real stand.
So look at this. Fed's mandate. The Fed's purpose is to reduce unemployment and avoid deflation. And they said that, they might have to cut it to lower basically their own job rates. Look at the, 2022, 15% of people unemployed. It's rising to 4.2% right now, which isn't really scary at all. But it is the lowest it's ever been in history almost. Since 2021, the Fed has been laser focused on the inflation side of this mandate, and that's what they've been focusing on. But Fed Chair Powell says the shifting balance of risk may warrant adjusting our policy stance, which means cutting rates, and that's why Trump wants them to cut rates, because cutting the rates is going to be good for real estate and it's going to be good for crypto, which
However,
he has a major stake in. So that's why Trump is saying, for 1% interest rates.
A Fed Chair Powell just made a massive pivot. Powell said the shifting balance of risks may warrant adjusting our policy stance. In other words, the Fed now views unemployment as a bigger risk than inflation. This is what's known as stagflation. That is what we are in right now. But this shift isn't happening because inflation is at the Fed's 2% target. In fact, core CPI is back above 3%, and PPI inflation just saw a 0.9% month-over-month jump, its biggest since 2022. So why have the risks shifted? Well, in the latest data, over 258,000 jobs were revised out of the May and June data alone.
I feel like that was the firing we had, right? There was a lot of news politics talk. It's because Trump fired a lot of state government employees. So they basically said they might have to cut rates because of that to boost the market, because this definitely hit a dent. This is a lot of people, and if a lot of people don't have jobs, it creates a problem in the economy.
That's more than the entire population of Scottsdale, Arizona. And year to date, 461,000 jobs have been revised down. As we have been saying, many leading indicators of the labor market are absolutely cracking. And so the Fed cannot ignore this. If they continue to ignore this, America will be in a very tough spot with rising inflation and rising unemployment, both of which will come.
The last time they ignored, the unemployment rates is literally when we had 1936, it was, I feel like, where it was one of the worst economies. And we also saw that in 2008. That's why they want to prevent this before it even happens. If the economy is so nice now, the Fed is basically trying to help you, right? It's trying to not just pump the markets or keep the markets down. What it's actually trying to do is make the markets really sustainable for 10 to 20 years. So the 2020, 2008 recession never happens.
Completely destroy the economy, the stock market, everything. Right? I mean, if people can't buy stocks, stock prices won't go up. If people can't buy, afford to live, they won't be buying products and services. And, the entire economy eventually starts to crater. And that's precisely what Jerome Powell is hoping to avoid.
So yeah, cutting rates is basically going to fix the Fed's small problem, but they're saying the economy is pretty good right now, which is another indicator for XRP prices that they could be going up.
And so Jerome Powell is left with the impossible decision. Do I lower rates and inflate the currency even more than it's already being inflated to help unemployment levels? And the answer to that seems to be yes. Now, what we haven't talked about is what does this mean for XRP? Well, let's first look at what the S&P 500 has been doing. When the Fed cuts rates within 2% of all-time highs, the S&P 500 loves it. And 20 of the last 20 times this has happened.
So yeah, historically in September or whenever we get the rate cuts, I feel like also this is priced in. But the S&P has risen an average of 14%, and of course the XRP will follow. Asset owners will party like it's 2021. So each time we saw rate cuts, the markets have risen. This is good. The issue here is, like, how many rate cuts will we get? We've been waiting for these rate cuts a long time. I feel like one is already priced in. What I mean by priced in is I mean people expect, that they are going to be there. So they're not going to be buying XRP because of that. But if we get 2 or 3 rate cuts, I think 3 is going to be a very small chance. That is where the markets could really move, even if we get 2 rate cuts.
What do? I buy stocks, I buy crypto, I buy real estate.
So look at 2024 rate cuts. We got about, 4%, and then in the next 3 months we got 3%, which aligns with September, October, November dates I've been giving to you guys.
People are going to be buying cryptocurrency. That's what I very strongly believe, and I think even more people are going to come into the XRP army, way more than ever seen historically before, because of this phenomena that's been going on since the beginning of the Federal Reserve. So it's interesting to look at what the top dogs are doing in the space with this information in mind. I think it's no coincidence that Michael Saylor today made a statement that Bitcoin is on sale. Of course he would say this right now. Of course he would. He realizes that all digital assets are on sale if the Fed's going to continue to cut rates, because investors are going to continue to look.
They're going to keep buying. That's when the XRP is going to be cheaper, as long as these rates get cut. But this now, there's a lot of smaller partnerships we're not talking about. The reason why I'm not talking about them is because I try to focus on the major partnerships for XRP. This is the big thing. Dubai travelers can book flights with XRP. We were seeing always this with Shiba Inu, but the big things that are changing is these rate cuts, and that's why billionaires are calling for this market boom that is going to be happening in October. I don't think, even though, guys, listen very carefully, even though the rate cuts are going to be in September, I feel like it's not going to change the prices that much for XRP. I feel like especially looking historically what happened every 4 years after the Bitcoin halving, September was always pretty bad. Now, however, we do and we can push for another price point in October, is when ton of good news is going to be happening along with these rate cuts, is what's really going to change everything. So XRP ETFs, that's what I'm really hopeful. XRP ETFs, let's talk about them.
News in relation to the XRP ETF, and in this video we're going to talk about exactly what this news is and what it means for XRP.
Guys, I've been saying XRP ETFs, 3 billion volume coming in, 3 billion inflows is a very big price momentum. If we get 1 to 2 billion inflows, I'm pretty sure we are getting from $3, what we are right now, to about $5 to $6, according to my math. So $5 to $6, depending how much we get in and how many outflows we get, that will definitely boost the price. Just from that 1 billion the first month, it is going to change the prices more than the rate cuts and more than anything else that we have in store. More than interest cuts, more than, positive news from the government. The biggest factor for Bitcoin and Ethereum's price growth of 2023, 2024 was actually the ETFs.
Like these videos and subscribe to the channel. These two simple things really do help me out so much. Also, if you have any good place to buy some XRP, make sure to check out my favorite exchange upload down in the description of this video. With that said, though, let's jump right into it, and I hope you guys enjoyed the content. Let's start this video off and jump right into some very exciting news in relation to the XRP ETF. And that is that we just had a mass refiling of the different parties who are filing for an XRP ETF with the SEC. Now, you're probably wondering, how is this bullish? How is it good? Well, let me break that down for you, because it's really one of the best things we can see.
Guys, and I said BlackRock, is going to be probably 90% of the filings. Now, BlackRock hasn't filed yet, and the same thing happened with Ethereum ETF. They did not file for XRP until last second. So let that sink in. That doesn't mean that BlackRock won't file yet. They're literally looking if there is enough volume and if it, is worth it for them to file the ETF itself. So all of these smaller ones, they are great, but the bigger volume is going to be BlackRock itself, which is one of the richest companies, if not the richest in the world.
Clearly, all these players refiling for their XRP ETF at the same exact time with just amendments and changes shows that the SEC is working very proactively with these parties all at once to get this XRP ETF in line. Essentially, what we're seeing is the SEC is taking all of these in a batch, saying, okay, this is how these all need to change to get pushed over the finish line. So essentially, all of these XRP ETFs can be refiled and then approved by the SEC. This is huge stuff because this shows that the SEC is actively working with these parties
guys.
to get these ETFs over the finish line and make it so we have the first ever spot XRP ETF in the United States. Now, if it was just one-offs and the SEC was kind of just...
We do have a Canada ETF, but that is nowhere near the amounts of volume. The main ones are going to be in the US. The main winners, the main ones that are really going to push its price.
throwing them some answers to keep them busy, and then they came back and threw them some new answers, that would be very different than what we're seeing right here. Right here, we see the SEC actively engaging with a group of these ETF filers with guidance to make it so these XRP ETFs get approved. Now, funny enough, this was exactly what we saw with the Bitcoin ETFs prior to the Bitcoin ETFs actually getting approved by the...
I actually feel the XRP ETFs will be easier for that reason, because the XRP ETFs have already had Bitcoin before them, had Ethereum before them. And now Bitcoin was like a big test on how to file correctly. Like the first time there was a lot of regulation issues, if they will pass, if they will not pass the SEC. It was also a different time back then. But this is really where they have a lot of regulation in place. And once they ask for these ETFs, when they get approved, it's going to be 10 times easier to get also other cryptos on the way.
SEC. So it's one of the best signs you could actually see to ultimately see these things get over the finish line. In my opinion, we're probably less than a month away from these things getting filed and approved. And if it's more than that, barely more than that is what I think we're going to see.
I feel like the 99% of people are hoping for BlackRock to do it. I definitely feel like these will help, right? These are some very big words, very big companies. But the biggest one is when BlackRock files it. I feel like when it gets announced, even the price will go up.
Well, right now we have futures ETFs. One of the problems with the futures ETF is it doesn't really chew up XRP supply. A futures ETF doesn't actually settle in the spot asset. So you could have a futures contract and it's a derivative, but it doesn't mean anyone actually has to be holding XRP. They're just kind of speculating on the movement of the price. The spot ETFs are very different. The spot ETFs actually pull XRP off the open market and likely out of Ripple's escrow as well. This is going to consume a huge amount of XRP. And when we get into the amount of XRP, I think you guys are going to really start to understand why this is so exciting.
So attract $8 billion volume, 1 to 3 billion, probably in the first month alone. But the real push is like 8 billion overall. So between 3 to 8 billion based on performance of Bitcoin and Ethereum. But yeah, I mean, XRP has way different volume, has way different price points as well. They are still, even if we get like 2 billion, wouldn't that push the price to at least $4 just from the market cap alone? Depends how many whales sell, right?
JP Morgan themselves actually predicted that an XRP ETF could pull in something like $3 to $8 billion in its first year. Now, $3 to $8 billion is an enormous number for XRP. Right now, on average, we see actually...
I think $3 to $8 billion of inflows is going to be very hard. It's going to be like a golden scenario.
Consistent outflows for XRP. It's very rare we see a week with consistent inflows.
During the 30 minutes while Powell was speaking, we saw only 30 million of net flows to XRP. That's made XRP's market cap jump by 15 billion, a 488x multiplier. Thank you for staying locked in. So that is pretty crazy. Imagine now if 1 billion comes in. This is what 30 million does just from Powell speaking, is 30 million. Now again, 1 billion. Imagine 1 billion. We don't need to have 8 billion, to see the prices move. Just 30 million itself of inflows, 1 billion would easily push it to like $4 to $6.
That the price still goes up, which is a whole nother crazy thing I don't want to get into this video. But typically, right, we have more net inflows or more net outflows than inflows on any given week. Now, the reason why price goes up is because the days with net inflows are typically much larger than that consistent time with net outflows. It's just a weird thing about cryptocurrency. It's like that for almost every single asset. But an XRP spot ETF would cause a lot more consistent large inflows to XRP. The other day, XRP, in about a 30-minute window when Jerome Powell was talking, saw about $30 million of net inflows. Now, this $30 million caused the market cap of XRP to jump by 15 billion. That's a 488x market multiplier on net invested dollars to XRP's market cap movement. Guys, we're talking about a small amount of money there, right? $30 million. Imagine what's going to happen when these ETFs go live. I think there's something like 18 of them now, and we're seeing $3 to $8 billion invested.
Now, here's the thing why they're calling for $3 to $8 billion is because both of these, Ethereum and Bitcoin, have been filed by BlackRock. Now, if BlackRock will not file, I suspect these inflows will be way underperformed, will be massively lower for that case, because Bitcoin and Ethereum, again, these predictions grew only because BlackRock, held like 70 or 80% of the volume. Of course, these are very beautiful companies and big companies, but they are not the key indicator to push XRP to $5. Usually it's like one company that really pushes the inflows because they have such a loyal customer base.
Over a very short time frame. If we're seeing about a 400x multiplier to 500x multiplier on these inflows, I mean, this could cause XRP's price to move hundreds of billions, if not even trillions, over the course of a single year. Right before we saw the Bitcoin ETFs finally go live, we saw that Bitcoin had a huge run up. It's really what sparked the bull market. And since then,
and also it's not just when it launches, right? These ETF inflows will stay for a long time. They will stay even for 1 year after for people to buy. It's not just the first month and then, everybody forgets about it. It's a real long-term plan for XRP ETFs.
Bitcoin has had very consistent inflows as more people look to get allocated to Bitcoin. I think the same is going to be true for XRP, but maybe even bigger.
I don't agree with that. If we don't get that BlackRock ETF that we have been waiting for, that will be 70% smaller volume, which also means way less inflows. I feel like still will help the price, right? But that could be like a 20% gain turned into maybe like a 300% gain turned into like maybe the 60% gain, which is still fine. But we really want those big key players to join in and buy Ethereum. Because again, not Ethereum, XRP, because if they file for an ETF, they need to physically hold that XRP. They just can't sell it without actually holding it. That's the rule of the ETF. So they will have to buy millions, if not billions, of XRP. So let that sink in. They will have to buy billions. When you buy billions, of course, the price goes up.
Large amounts of very big capital to get invested in XRP and chew up the circulating supply. Essentially, all of these different large parties are going to have to start purchasing XRP off the open market or directly from Ripple's escrow. This is going to cause a huge amount of XRP to get locked up in these very sticky products. And it's going to cause a huge change in the dynamics of how the inflows and outflows for XRP work. If we see anything close to what JP Morgan is predicting, I believe this is going to be a huge catalyst for XRP moving forward. But not only that, it's going to add a ton of legitimacy to XRP as well. A lot of people look at the SEC as a gatekeeper of what is good and what is bad. And even though that's the farthest thing from the truth, it's just how people see it. And they're going to see not only Ripple and the SEC coming to a settlement to dismiss the case. Now, it's not technically a settlement, but they both decided to get there to dismiss the case. So good enough for me.
I feel like more people in the last 3 years have been joining from XRP, hating it, to actually liking it. I'm one of those people. I didn't believe in it until I saw the technology of it.
So with that happening, alongside the SEC approving an XRP ETF, you're going to see a huge amount of legitimacy from these players with very large amounts of money looking to plow into this XRP ETF. XRP has the United States narrative. It's fast and efficient. It has the whole narrative around being a utility asset as well that I believe is going to be very important and resonate very well with a lot of these large financial institutions. So when you mix in all of these things together, I think it's very interesting to see what could happen to the price of XRP. Well, this was
6 spot ETF approvals incoming. And again, guys, I want to let you know, if one gets approved, all of them are going to get approved. That's what happened with Ethereum. Partnerships with Japanese SBII holdings. The Ripple SEC case has finally ended. Even though I feel like the Ripple SEC case finally ending, it's been kind of like priced in for 5 months. But XRPL massive upgrades coming. Now, this is what's important if we want to get that mainstream adoption. You know, if you want to get like 5%, 10% of the world using XRP Ledger, you got to upgrade it. First, right now, I don't even think it can handle like maybe 3%. So they want to get like to capacity, technology capacity, so the whole world could be using XRP.
Pointed out to me by a person on X the other day, and what we're looking at is the current downtrend for XRP against Bitcoin. And what you can see right here is the XRP price is trying very hard to break out of this downtrend and actually move up against Bitcoin. Now, I don't think it's any coincidence that all this is happening right around all these bullish catalysts. This is simply how these things play out. But not only do we see some huge fundamental news on these XRP ETFs that are going to cause a massive amount of demand on the spot asset, but we also have XRP looking to break through this long-term downtrend against Bitcoin. Guys, Bitcoin dominance is also hanging on the edge of a cliff. XRP's price chart looks like it's about to explode. And when you compare that to XRP against Bitcoin, you can see that this thing is just waiting for something to kick it through and blast this thing into a next level. There are so many positive things going on right now, whether or not it's the Federal Reserve lowering interest rate catalyst, whether or not it's the Ripple SEC case ending, whether or not it's institutions adopting utility-based chains to improve the broader financial system, or whether or not it's just looking at charts and seeing extremely bullish patterns for XRP specifically against the rest of the market. All this is all leading to the same exact thing, a very dramatic price rise for XRP. Now, I think we're right around the corner from something like this happening.
I agree. A price rise is around the corner. It's just not what people are really expecting in a sense. You know, there's different stuff about it. It's just like ETFs are awesome, but we need to see BlackRock really ask for it. And I feel like they're waiting for the others to get confirmed first or approved. That's what happened with Ethereum. I could be totally wrong. If there's any XRP experts, let me know down in the comments below. But this is the most important factor, is if we ever want to see XRP at $10, we need to see this. ETFs, everyone like listing it as much as possible. We need to see the Crypto Clarity Act passing, and we need to see the retail investors at least somehow coming back. Not really 2021 levels, but you know, the burns would definitely help. They wouldn't change the price that much. Here's the thing. XRP ETFs are the first step with the Ripple upgrades to get the retail investors back. So it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
He's already looking at what Saylor is doing and pretty skeptical about it. And I do think that would be pretty localized. It wouldn't be good, but that's the only thing I can see right now really derailing the market as it stands. Now, I
mean, at this unemployment rate, which is the lowest it's ever been in the last 50 years, I don't feel like anything can really destroy the market, in my opinion. Everything that people have been saying XRP will go down in price has actually been a bullish indicator. Tariffs are now a bullish indicator. Like people, you know, Trump doing the tariffs, nobody's talking about that thing anymore. And before, it was very bad. There's no such thing right now, in my opinion, that is really going to destroy the market. We are in bullish as we could be, in my personal opinion, but who knows? The markets could change at any moment. But this time, it's looking much better than it is looking in 2021. So XRP, everyone got it wrong. Let's see. You know, a lot of people are wrong about XRP.
Here's some XRP price charts at the end of the video. We're watching something historic take place right now, and I believe it's going to cause a lot of money to flow into XRP. Like always, your support means so much to this channel. Thank you to everyone who takes the time to like these videos and subscribe to the channel. These two simple things really do help me out so much. Also, if you ever need a good place to buy some XRP, make sure to check out my favorite exchange Uphold down in the description of this video. With that said, illustrate XRP Ledger stands in this entire world economic situation. But David Schwartz coming out recently and commenting that he believes the XRP Ledger is still positioned pristinely to become a critical part of the global financial system. in my opinion, tells a lot about what is happening behind the scenes. It's always great to get updates from people on the inside and be able to gauge their interest on sort of where XRP stands, where Ripple stands, because they're going to know a lot of information that we're necessarily not privy to.
So yeah, I feel like a lot of information right now for XRP, a lot of these partnerships, they're still not revealed. Why? Because they are like trade secrets in a sense. They still don't want to reveal them because they're not ready yet. But I've been pretty vocal that XRP has probably some announcements about their development for the Ripple ledger in the next year. So I don't know if Ripple wants, this to be public, but there is a very good chance that Ripple is going to reveal some more technological upgrades next year for their ledger, which will enable more institutions to start using it. Again, because they are preparing for the massive influx of buyers, of people coming into the crypto market. And here's where they really win. 99% of XRP holders do not know this.
Ripple does a lot of things behind the scenes with governments and different organizations who might not want the public to know what exactly they're doing with Ripple and XRP. And so to hear David Schwartz, the person who can see all these things going on in the background, talking about how the XRP ledger is positioned to achieve these extremely lofty and bullish goals, in my opinion, is only a very good thing for the success of XRP moving forward, and lets me know there's a lot going on behind the scenes that we're not necessarily privy to. Now, with that said, there's also a critical part to this, right? How does that actually take place? How does the XRP ledger become this critical part of our financial system? And why is it going to be the XRP ledger and not some other cryptocurrency network? Well, recently, David Schwartz did an interview where I believe he breaks down one of the most important things that people are severely misunderstanding. So many people are looking at the adoptions of these networks right now and saying, oh, well, Sui has all these retail traders, and then Solana has all these meme coins, and Ethereum has these...
Like CTO is saying, trillions are coming into XRP's market cap. Again, all of these bullish runs, I have said many times on stream, is that all of these three, Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, these are going to be the biggest winners that are going to win, and then it's going to be the US-based companies. I don't feel like that the meme coins are going to win, because if they would have, they already have in 2024. 2024 was all about meme coin rally when Bitcoin was low, Solana was up, all these meme coins were up, but 2025, potentially even early 2026, is going to be about utility. Utility USA-backed coins. This is where they win because, again, the government has said that they want to push out and reward U.S. government coins. They didn't say how. Like, government coins is what I mean, like companies that work and are based in U.S. that hire, physically they hire USA people that, create more revenue for USA. It's basically like a cycle. And one of them is XRP.
Different DeFi protocols. But what people don't understand is we're still in the very, very, very early adoption stage of cryptocurrency. A lot of people, in my opinion, are looking at the adoption of this technology completely wrong. They're looking at whatever has momentum right now through retail activity and saying, you know what, that's probably going to be the winner. But if you listen to David Schwartz actually talk in this interview right here, you're going to realize that he's looking at the market completely differently. And it doesn't seem like he's really coming at this from it's his idea or a thesis. It almost feels like he knows this is going to be the way this shakes out. And in my opinion, it goes to exactly what we talked about earlier, which is that he likely has already seen and is working on a lot of partnerships that let him know that what he's going to say in this interview...
There are a lot of partnerships in the background that nobody talks about.
...is very likely the case. I want you to listen up to this and we're going to break it down, but it's such an important thing that I think most of the market is missing.
I feel like we really are on the cusp of a mass institutional adoption, both of DeFi and of other blockchain technologies. I think this is also like one of the key obstacles to mass retail adoption. A lot of people in the space previously thought that retail adoption was like the big wave, but I think institutional adoption is a precursor. You have to connect to where people are. You have to go to where the value is. You can't build a new financial system from zero, ignoring the existing financial system where everybody's money is, where all the value is, where the real world is, trillions of dollars in value. You can't just say, oh, forget about all that. Let's just build something new over here. It doesn't work. And so I think this wave of institutional adoption over the next year or two is going to be what's going to pave the way for mass retail adoption. And then we can deliver on those promises. Like, we all want to to bank the unbanked, but like the unbanked, like they have to be able to spend their money to buy groceries and pay their phone bill. And so we have to have that institutional connectivity. And I don't think there are any.
They've been building this institution partnerships for the last 10 years. Literally 10 years of hard work to get where Ripple is today.
Obstacles. I think that's and I think this conference shows that.
So I think that's super interesting. Two very important things there. One, David Schwartz doesn't even think retail adoption has happened yet. A lot of people.
That's what I've been telling you guys. And something that's coming in just not institutional like retail is also institutions, corporations, small businesses coming into XRP. Again, who's going to profit more? Retail investors or corporations which sell services that pay high fees? Again, it's not just banks they're going to be working with. It's also going to be these small businesses that get charged for every transfer, every fee. That's why they enabled so many things on the XRP ledger. It's also going to be for the institutions coming in, and retail is going to be like, wow, this looks cool. Let me buy it. Let me not buy Bitcoin, which is like $200,000. I cannot own a full Bitcoin, but I can own maybe like $20, $30, $200 of XRP. This is what happened with Shiba Inu, at least, where you could buy like trillions of SHIB for a very cheap price.
Talk about retail adoption of the Solana chain or retail adoption of the Ethereum chain. But David Schwartz is telling you, we haven't even seen retail adoption. All we're seeing right now is some early people playing around with this technology, but it's not adoption. He says the institutional adoption needs to come first. And that might be one of the most interesting parts about all of this. While the rest of the cryptocurrency industry was focused on trying to pull retail into their different ecosystems, Ripple took a much different approach. Instead, they worked with the institutions that already have billions of retail customers and then are going to let the technology trickle down to them. So Ripple only needs to land likely 15 to 20 institutional partnerships to be hitting billions upon billions of people in retail. This is the complete opposite of what most of the cryptocurrency industry tried to do. They said, you know what, we're going to go directly to Ripple, we're going to go directly to retail and cut out the financial institutions. But what David Schwartz is telling you there is that didn't work. They didn't onboard any of the retail. Yes, they onboarded some enthusiasts and some niche people who want to play around with this technology who are super technical. Yes, you onboard.
We are nowhere close to where we were with retail in 2021. 2021 was way better.
Onboarded them. We didn't onboard retail. David Schwartz is saying retail adoption hasn't even happened yet. And in fact, their goal is to go to the financial institutions that have all the retail customers, incorporate the blockchain technology to the financial institutions, and then retail is using the blockchain technology via the financial institution without even noticing it. What cryptocurrency is a new set of rails.
That's what we are planning right now with Ripple, or at least what Ripple is planning, is making people get Ripple unawareingly. Like, that's a 300 IQ move. Instead of buying a meme coin, they're just going to offer services to banks. And if you want to trade, for example, let's say every single day, you will have to own 1 XRP for the transaction fees. So people will not even know what XRP is, but instead they will burn XRP, even though they're not aware of it every single day. Isn't that just amazing marketing? At least that's what I understood from the video, right? This could be millions and millions of volume from people, you know, getting into crypto or just wanting to buy XRP very easily, doing it and forgetting about it the next day.
It's a new set of financial architecture. And the average retail person doesn't know how their bank operates today and probably won't care of how their bank operates in the future.
They don't care if they buy XRP. They won't even know they own XRP. But it's funny, right? Because they will be owning some XRP, at least for the burns. That's how XRP works, right? You buy some of it and you can use it for these fast transactions that Ripple is offering.
The thing they really care about is just that things work well. And what the bank wants is the bank wants fast, efficient transactions, and they want to be innovative to keep up with all the players in fintech.
And banks want to save money too. Like both retail and both banks will save money with XRP. And they will unknowingly like burn possibly some money with XRP and save money in return because the bank transfers are going to be 10 times cheaper.
What Ripple is doing is upgrading the rails, upgrading the back end of the financial system through these massive institutions that have billions of customers so that everyone gets the power of blockchain technology without having to be an expert on it. I can promise you in 10 years from now, 20 years from now, no one is going to be walking around your average retail customer with a wallet with a seed phrase and paying for groceries with that. They're going to be using cryptocurrency technology. They're going to be using things like the XRP ledger, but for them, things really won't have changed. From the front end, things will look very similar. But on the back end, we're going to have a serious upgrade to the rails that makes money itself flow. And Ripple, in my opinion, has always had the right approach. Stop trying to get one or two people to go gamble on some meme coins and call that crypto adoption. No, get some of the largest financial institutions with billions of clients, upgrade their backend with cryptocurrency, and then boom, you have a sprawling network effect, a growing connection point of this new financial system where essentially you either get on board or get left behind. With that said, though, I want to move over to the XRP price charts real quick.
I fully agree. I fully agree that, you know, what Ripple is doing right now is not forcing people to use their technology. They're basically offering it, and banks are forced to use it. Now, they don't want to really use crypto, and XRP is making that an option. They're building their own ledger using crypto technology, or what we learned from crypto in the past few years. Banks rather wouldn't use Ripple, but they don't have any competitors. Like, they would use maybe a financial, not a financial firm, a technology firm. Thing is, Ripple has been building up this for 10 years to hold the patent to what, you know, is a very, very complicated thing that a lot of us won't even understand on what's going on with XRP. So yeah, right now we are forming this pattern. Again, we are still in the support zone. I've been saying, guys, like 3 weeks ago, I made a prediction and it's still holding on just as I've told you. It's going to be holding above $3. Maybe sometimes it dips a bit below, but it reclaims back because there's a big buying pressure
here before getting the momentum to break to the upside. Obviously things were looking a little sketchy as we broke through down here, but just like always seems to happen, XRP has a miraculous recovery back in the middle of this triangle. And if you take a look at some of these other charts, we can see that the direction for XRP is most likely upward. Right now, we are finally seeing Bitcoin crashing out of this dominance channel. This dominance channel was going up for 2 to 3 years. I really started to pay attention to it like right in this time frame because I was like, you know what, this thing, it absolutely has to break down. You just don't have channels go up like this for such a long period. Ultimately, they break, things derail, things move to the downside. And here we have Bitcoin breaking to the downside. Bitcoin dominance about to fall off a cliff, in my opinion, and a lot of money is going to be flowing into things like XRP.
Now, I don't agree with this prediction. I feel like also the Bitcoin dominance is going to probably bounce back and then set a new low. So, yeah, it is going to go not super, super low, but it's going to bounce back, which means XRP still has some time to actually go up here.
Low points are
like, it's going to need probably another month to rebound. But 1 month, like 5 days, maybe like early October, November, December is when XRP could be giving its final push.
Flipping, or everyone dumping their Bitcoin ETFs and going all into XRP ETFs. But I do think there's going to be a lot of people out there who see the XRP ETF, are sold by the narrative of what XRP is doing, and saying, you know what, maybe I take 10 or 20 or 30% of my Bitcoin ETF.
Like, if we want to see XRP right now outperform Bitcoin, we need to see how many retail investors actually enter the market in the next 3 months. If a lot of retail investors come in, you can expect XRP to grow. But who knows? Would we be seeing $1,000 Ripple XRP before of the end of 2025? It's going to be very hard, but I'm always hopeful. Like 2025, $1,000 XRP is absolutely insane if we can't hit even $3 yet or $5. So could we be seeing $1,000 for XRP? Some YouTubers are saying yes. Let's check this out.
I believe, I was going to say I fear, but I believe we are actually beginning to enter the euphoric phase of the cryptocurrency market.
I feel like the euphoric phase was really like the last 8 months. We just didn't notice it because it was mostly all the eyes were on Bitcoin anyway.
This is usually marked by a number of things that we tend to see within the cryptocurrency space. So A, in case you've missed it. A large number, this isn't like 3 or 4, we're talking about hundreds of companies, have been announcing in the very recently about the acquisitions that they plan on acquiring for cryptocurrency assets. Basically, it's constantly in the billions of dollars. And if you've noticed, if you've connected, that's not right, the news within the cryptocurrency market, you've kind of seen that the price rises have also correlated to companies announcing that they're buying gigantic amounts of coins.
I feel like with an ETF, there's going to be the XRP companies joining in. So a lot of XRP companies are suddenly going to be joining us, which they're going to announce that they are now owning, after the ETFs have been coming in, some XRP. We are seeing that with Bitcoin. We saw that with Ethereum. We are now waiting for XRP to do the same.
One coin in particular has grabbed the attention of a large number of people, and it is because of its alleged and apparent and actual ties to a number of organizations. This has been going on for quite some time.
A lot of you know that.
But now when I said like this idea of like the euphoric, it's also slightly manic as well.
Like a lot of people couldn't buy it, a lot of institutions in 2020 because it was fully regulated. And if they lost that lawsuit, it would be very risky to hold it. That's why a lot of them bought Bitcoin instead. So let that sink in. There's a very small percentage, even compared to Bitcoin, not even speaking about the rest of the world, which own XRP. Maybe it's like 0.001% because they didn't even have that option. But I feel like this will change starting once the ETFs get published. We already saw the first XRP treasury being revealed.
XRP has constantly, this coin in the future, I think is going to have a lot of books written about it, a lot of documentaries. This isn't something that I'm just throwing out there. The amount of energy constantly surrounding Ripple and XRP is, I even think in many ways, a lot more intense than Bitcoin and Ethereum potentially even combined.
It's already grown more than Ethereum and Bitcoin. What makes it say it couldn't grow even more than that? Why are the whales buying it at $3? I mean, same could be said for Ethereum and Bitcoin. They're buying it at, at the highest. But it's a very clear indicator that the whales, they have a chance right now. They're buying back as soon as the supply hits below $2.8. Doesn't it kind of make sense?
The original intent of XRP was to be used exclusively by banks. That was the thing years ago. It was XRP and Stellar Lumens. You could find it on their old websites, and they said, we're here to work with banks or something. I'm paraphrasing extensively, but that was kind of the thing. Basically, if crypto was going to take over, therefore XRP would be like the bridge asset that banks and governments and institutions could use, as opposed to having to rely on the old system. That has kind of morphed into this thing where, and I'm going to be as honest with you as I completely can, the idea of what they're doing, and I mentioned this, I alluded to this before in other videos. We get such an extensive amount of news about what's happening in this space explicitly. So
I feel like this is what also, pumped XRP's price, because if Bitcoin had this type of news every single day, its price would be 200,000. But when you keep coming back, like what happens when you not watch news all the time? You only think about the news itself, right? And that's what's happening with XRP. It's just a huge cycle where XRP is not only about utility, but it's also becoming sort of a media entertainment thing where they are having like news articles, they're having all sorts of technology development, they're having gatherings, and that's what's really boosting XRP. They're doing networking. They are networking with banks, and I don't really feel like they're going fully on banking. They're going to focus on banking right now because that's what they've been focusing on the last 10 years. But they're going to do way more than just that. It's very clear. They're focused on all these things, like all these partnerships that are really going to explode XRP. So I don't feel like they're just going to do banks. I think they're going to expand, which makes it very clear that they just double down on RWA, real world assets. They just bought a $200 million company called Rail, which does business to business token transactions or stablecoin transactions, which again, these are the two different niches in crypto, two different sectors. So yes, Ripple is in fact going different than just banks. They're preparing for it for the next year when stablecoins for business to business reach $1 trillion, 3 trillion, what the US government or someone in the US government said, market.
Years ago, we had to kind of formulate our own ideas and say, well, maybe this is going to happen to the coin. This might be a thing.
It was much more risky to buy the coin 3 years ago. That's why it was much cheaper as well.
We've moved on so far and we have so much adoption within this space. It's not really speculation anymore, more of a, we know it's going to happen. We're waiting for that event to take place. That event has taken place. So we've heard from Ripple and a number of companies before. It's kind of like in 2017, 18, 19, we would really wonder, like, are companies buying Bitcoin? Can they spell Bitcoin? That kind of thing. We heard from Ripple that they planned on working with banks around the world. And then we heard that they were working with banks. And then we heard that they were working with central banks. Then we heard that they were working with countries and governments, many of which are under NDA, non-disclosure agreement.
So this will be probably revealed which governments they're working with. That would be pretty crazy. Like, how many crypto projects work with governments? Maybe 1 to 2. Maybe just Ripple.
Clauses. So we as the public don't know explicitly who. But a lot of their sales, this was also a thing years ago, they used to sell like excessive amounts of XRP and people were like, why are you dumping these coins onto the market? And people from Ripple were like, well, we're not. We're actually selling them to governments and to banks. We just can't tell you who because we'll be sued by the laws of the contract that we signed with them. As this has mounted and we've learned more about what's happening for all coins, not even just XRP, there always seems to be a range of, well, that's not enough.
I mean, pretty clear that it's not just banks that want to work with XRP, because anyone having lots of sales or lots of transactions will try to go to competitor for a lower fee. And XRP is offering very low fees, which makes it instantly win in terms of any other competitor. Like if you go to Swift right now, it probably can't do like 1/20th of a penny per transaction because, you know, they have a different technology. Maybe they can. But again, it's going to be way, way cheaper to use XRP for the banks, where XRP really grew mainstream. Now they have enough money. Now they're growing profitable, which means also their budget is growing bigger. Their budget to actually get more projects involved.
We don't have many like big companies in this space. We have foundations, but we don't have many companies like Ripple. We have a Cardano Foundation, Ethereum Foundation. I think there's a Tron Foundation, Solana Foundation. You get it. But Ripple as a standalone company is quite rare in that aspect.
And it's a US company, which really turned out in their favor because the US government is looking very good with them. They're inviting them to the conferences. They're inviting them even to the meetings, like, you know, to actually voice their opinion. So that's the first thing. But also, they have 900 employees. They look legitimate to businesses and actually building their technology. They look legitimate to the governments as well. Like, are you going to work with like a random foundation with no office, or are you going to work with like visiting their office? I feel like this is what made banks really consider like, wow, this is a little company. They just use crypto as a backup, and the technology out there is what they've been building 10 years.
Everything Ripple said that they were going to do, they've done, and then some, in the realm of a previous regulation.
If Ripple gets their banking license approved in October, it's game in. I totally forgot about the banking license as well. And 80% of Japan banks are supposed to be switching to XRP by end of 2025 and early 2026. So I feel like 2025 and 2026, 80% of Japan banks will not be fully using Ripple, but they will be using some aspects of the Ripple bank.
And what they could and couldn't do, and they went across oceans, and they working with other countries and things like that. That for some reason has morphed into that Ripple allegedly, and this is where it gets a little interesting. That news isn't enough. So now the news being spread around is that Ripple is secretly working with the Fed, and that any day now, someone's going to announce that XRP is going to be replacing the US dollar, and that we're going to see quadrillions.
We have the technology now. Like 2025 is way more developed to hold this technology. It couldn't be done in 1988, and it couldn't be done in 2013. But when you think about it, the technology evolving is really what changed Ripple for the better.
Of dollars flowing through XRP, pushing its price up. It's not enough of the idea that XRP is probably going to $10 to $15 per coin. We've gone over that before. We don't have to dive deep into it. If it goes to 7, it can logically go to 10. If it goes to 10, it can go to 15. That's part of the news today. The big shebang is that apparently, and I will not name any names, a number of crypto influencers have apparently been pushing the idea rather recently that there is apparently a larger amount of institutional adoption than we are being told.
So yeah, $1,000 is going to be hard, but $15 in a few cycles, it could happen. You know, I mean, just with the burns itself, with all the partnerships, it is the positive factor that I'm excited for.
There's apparently being a lot of deep integration into cross-border payments that we are not being told about. And that apparently the Ripple stablecoin, the RLUSD, is actually, this isn't a joke. This is a real thing that's being spoken about. I saw it on Twitter. I kind of was like, okay. But then I realized that people are now kind of believing it. And that the stablecoin is apparently so secretly integrated into a number of things within the world's ecosystem that a number of influencers within the cryptocurrency space, as they're called, are now announcing that this year XRP is going to $1,000 per coin.
Now, $1,000 per coin means that it will have to be used more than the Ripple, basically the whole USD market. More money than the USD market. Now, I don't see there's even a 1% chance of this happening. People are saying this will happen if the government starts to trade their USD before XRP. I mean, just think about how silly that sounds, right? We got to stay realistic.
So when you hear stuff like this, it sounds ridiculous, and it's because it is. And luckily, there was, I think, 1 or 2 people online who actually kind of breached the topic. This is why it made the news. Because a large number of people, first of all, that's not how numbers or liquidity or money movement actually even works.
If you want to see $1,000 for XRP, then you need to put 36 trillion. We don't even have that much money in the world.
If XRP hit $1,000 within the next 12, 14 weeks, we would see an actual implosion in the world's economy. This would be devastating to you as well. You think it wouldn't, but your entire world would be flipped upside down. There's this really interesting conversation that people keep having. It even says it here. The idea, for if you haven't seen it, a lot of the speculation is that this year, because of the upcoming potential yeses, for XRP ETFs within the United States.
Even the ETFs, even if everything goes perfectly, $10 is the literal maximum that this by the end of the year, like $10, but this has to be like everything has to be aligned and all the whales must agree not to sell their XRP. You know, as soon as a multi-billionaire whale sees that he's a multi-billionaire, of course he's going to sell some of it. So $10,000, some people would wake up like billionaires. Some people would probably wake up trillionaires. Like that would mean that Brad Garlinghouse, the CEO, would be a trillionaire.
There's a rising idea that we're going to hit between $100 to $200. No, 10 to 20. There we go. $10 to $20 per XRP sometime this year. It then goes on to say that apparently there was a $100 theory, but the idea now amongst a lot of influencers is $1,000. And they're touting this $1,000 as the actual base price for XRP. So you know how like a lot of times, let's say Bitcoin's at 200. Then Bitcoin's at 8,000, then Bitcoin's at 16,000, Bitcoin's at 35,000. Stay with me. And then at some point, Bitcoin falls back down to 29,000. That would then be considered like the base of like Bitcoin people won't sell their Bitcoin below 29,000. That's the idea of like the base case. People are saying that XRP is not only going to go higher than 1,000, but if at any point the price would fall,
I'm really hoping like to be realistic, like $5 to $6, $4. I mean, a lot of people wouldn't be unhappy with $4. Like that's 25%. But just looking at the stock market, like it gives like 4 to 7% a year, depending on the years, right? So even like 25% is like 5 years of stock market gains.
1,000 would constantly be the actual bounce off point. A lot of people are announcing that $1,000 this year is actually plausible. If that happens, we would see a $57 to a $59 trillion market cap for XRP.
So that would be enough for someone like to pay off the US debt if he holds like $1 billion of XRP. That would be absolutely amazing.
Leg up push. We typically see like a big run up in price for Bitcoin. When we hit $8,000, we were like, okay, looks like we've peaked. We went to 20,000. Cool. Makes a lot of sense. But now we're getting a lot of like the other week. If you missed that, somebody was like, yeah, like we're going to 1.5 million per Ether. And I'm like, where exactly are you getting those numbers from? Like,
so you got to understand, if it's hard to reach $4 right now, there is gonna be very hard to reach $1,000. But if now, even if it's hard now to reach $4, it doesn't mean that in the future it will be hard to reach $15 due to so much money inflows, partnerships, all the extra money supply that is coming in. So the M2 money supply that is opening in the markets. M2 money supply is how much money is in the banks and how much money the banks are holding.
And I mean, it's not a sorry to burst your bubble kind of thing. Just under, money is flowing into our market. We're seeing like literally trillions of dollars are flowing into the cryptocurrency space. But the odds of 75 trillion moving just into...
So even if XRP is 1 trillion and Bitcoin goes to 3 trillion or 4 trillion, so that means Bitcoin would go to $200,000 and XRP hits $7, $15. I feel like that's pretty realistic. Like it would take over Bitcoin's place, but Bitcoin would be worth so much more. I don't think it's too crazy to call that. Again, it could be happening next year, could be happening in 4 years. I will keep you guys updated with more on this channel. If you guys want more content like this, smash that like button. I will keep you guys updated and I will go edit and take a rest. You can see it in my eyes.